Hello, I'm Sheila Blanco, Public Information Manager for Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools. And today we are going to have a district discussion about something that is very important, not just to the school district, not just to our students, but to the community as a whole, and that is ESPLOST. We're going to talk a little bit about what ESPLOST is, what it does for the district and for the community, and about the continuation of ESPLOST that will be coming up in a referendum on this November's ballot. First, I want to introduce all the folks who are here to join in on this discussion. We have our superintendent, Dr. Ann Levette. We have our Deputy Superintendent of Operations and Facilities, Ms. Vanessa Miller-Kegler. And we have Drayvon Jones. He is a project executive with our capital projects crew here in the school district. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm going to open with Dr. Levette. A lot of folks don't really know what ESPLOST is, why it's such a valuable tool for the district to use and for the community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We are very fortunate to have ESPLOST as a way to reinforce and to improve our schools and our technology. ESPLOST is an education special option sales tax. That means it's not a tax in the traditional sense. It's a sales tax, and it is one that is approved by our community for special uses, and in this case, education. We've been very fortunate to have support in our community for ESPLOST over several years. This would be our fourth iteration, and each is 5 years long. And we are very fortunate to have that because it replaces bonds. Mm-hmm. Over the history of the school district, if we've wanted to build something new or replace buildings, we've had to issue bonds, which must be approved by the community, but they often have a very big ticket, a very long period of time, and it is borne primarily by taxpayers. The ESPLOST initiative allows us to capitalize on and share in the sales tax that people pay in our community. And that means all the people in the community who shop in the community or make purchases pay sales tax, and we are a part of that. But also people who drive into our community, tourists, they also pay sales tax. And that means that those monies are also a part of what we use for these projects. So ESPLOST is a wonderful opportunity for us to do really great community work in our community, but it is contributed to, or those dollars are contributed to, by local people who are spending in our community, but also those who drive through, those who come into our community to shop, and those who come here to take advantage of our wonderful tourism opportunities.
So essentially it gives the community, our local community, a bit of a discount on building all these new schools and providing all this infrastructure, because we know that the tourism industry in Savannah, Chatham County is growing and continues to grow. So got a lot of people coming in here helping to contribute to our school district rather than putting it all on property owners here.
Correct. And we really want to emphasize that this next iteration, ESPLOST 4, would be a continuation. It's not something new. It would be a vote by our community for us to continue using the sales tax in this way. And we think that's important. We think it's important because we try to, as much as we can, buy local and employ local. So our families are benefiting by the use of the sales tax in this manner. We use local suppliers, we use local labor, and we use local products as much as we can, and we have a really good record of that. So we see ESPLOST as an important way for us to keep our economy going, also to keep our families employed, keep our small business owners engaged, and it's a win-win for our community.
And the sales tax is only 1 penny on the dollar. We always refer to it in the district as the power of the penny, which has done a lot of good over the last 15 years, because each ESPLOST is approved for 5 years. So we're coming to the end of ESPLOST 3. Ms. Miller-Kegler, can you talk a little bit about those three ESPLOST programs and what they have provided to the district thus far?
Absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to share information about ESPLOST 1, ESPLOST 2, and ESPLOST 3, and to be able to just thank the board, thank the community for the support of ESPLOST 3. And while it's geared towards the school district and instruction and academic, but it's also a partnership with the communities where we have our students, where we have our schools. We make a concerted effort to reach out to those communities where there are going to be new schools, where there are going to be replacement schools, making sure that we're just good partners as it relates to our capital building program. So as a part of ESPLOST 1 that was back in 2006, there was over 7 brand new facilities that we were able to construct as a result of, as you said, the power of the penny. To be able to provide new 21st century learning facilities for our students. A lot of those schools were 50, 60 years old, so you can just imagine the necessary work and renovations that were required to be able to provide our students with a higher level of facilities to enhance academics. Oftentimes we have the question, well, does the building make a difference relative to academics? And my question has always been absolutely, because we want to make sure that the learning environment is conducive for the highest level of instruction in academics, from HVAC system upgrades to safety and security to technology. When we talk about ESPLOST, oftentimes you hear the focus on the new building, or the renovation of a building, addition to a building, but also being able to provide the latest technology, being able to upgrade technology, being able to ensure that buildings are safe and secure for our students. So certainly in the first ESPLOST 1, you saw a high concentration of new and replacement buildings, because certainly based on our data, and when we make that decision and make that recommendation, at least to the board and then to the voters, it's based on data. Those are data-driven decisions based on what we refer to our facilities condition assessment. When we had each and every one of our buildings assessed by an outside firm to come in and just tell us the condition. And each of those buildings have what we refer to as an FCI, which is a facilities condition index. So it allowed us to review that, make those recommendations to the board, then develop the referendum for the voters. So across ESPLOST 1, 2, and 3, you've seen 21, 22 new schools. Is there still work to be done? Absolutely. In those 55 buildings, and where you see growth in Western Chatham County, where you see the new Hampstead K-8 coming along. You saw when we built the new New Hampstead High School, which was a brand new school, was not a replacement. Talked a little bit about the partnerships that we have with municipalities. Work very closely with the City of Garden City relative to the multi-campus that's going to be out on in the Garden City area. One that we get a lot of attention about. Because it's the first for us. Traditionally see it in large metropolitan areas, but you talked about the power of the penny and promises made, promises kept. So you'll see the combination of Gould Elementary, Mercer Middle School, and Groves High School on one campus. So you can just look forward to 2023 and the learning that will come out of that one building and the planning relative to academics and giving us the flexibility that we need. So 1, 2, and 3 have been powerful. You'll see more of a concentration as we move forward. Hopefully with the success of E3, we'll be focusing more on some of those systems that need to be replaced. You'll certainly see a couple of replacements. We're looking at Windsor Forest High School, certainly. But again, we make those data-driven decisions based on those current conditions of those buildings and want to be able to upgrade them.
Well, talking about those old buildings, something that people might get a sense of, with the technology that goes into teaching today. And I'm not even talking about all the virtual learning that our students experienced during the pandemic, but just all the technology, the smart boards, things like that are used in classrooms today that, when I was in school, it was still a chalkboard.
Yeah.
This is an old city. You have old buildings. So some of these schools are 50, 60 years old.
Oh.
And so it would be trying to do the same things you do with today's technology on a smartphone, trying to do that with an old flip phone
Yeah.
or a rotary phone wouldn't quite work. It's hard to even to comprehend how much advancement there has been in the technology used in schools.
And that's a good analogy that you just drew. So the audio enhancement is going to be priority one. And Mr. Jones has been intimately involved in that as relates to research, proof of concepts, how we can integrate that first class into our proposal for E4. As a result of the pandemic, when we had to pivot and we were successful in doing that, how do we prepare for the future and making sure that our buildings are equipped where our teachers will be able to deliver that high quality instruction in the event that our students are back home? So I'm going to ask Mr. Jones to talk a little bit about that when we make sure that he include that in his part of the discussion, because he's been doing a lot of work related to audio enhancements, but being able to integrate those resources, upgrade them for students. Technology, safety, and security is certainly at the top of our list, as well with security vestibules, and we'll continue to evaluate those needs and be able to fund them from ESPLOST. With ESPLOST, we've been able to pay off our debt. Savannah-Chatham County Public School System is debt-free. We had schools that we built back years ago, but we still had debt related to that. So as a result of ESPLOST 1, 2, and 3, we have been able to pay off all of our bond debt. So it's not just new buildings. The question is, why are you continuing to build new buildings? Certainly there's a need, but there are other needs that are necessary for this district related to capital projects, and we've been able to I'm going to venture to say we've done a good job because the voters have supported us, because there's a strong accountability system in place as it relates to how those decisions are made and how they're carried out.
Mr. Jones, Ms. Miller-Kegler just talked about the enhancement to the classroom, for instance, the audio enhancement and things like that. You are a project manager, so you get to see firsthand the principal, what they think of the new building. You deal with them. I know that you often work with principals, get their input a lot of times when as construction of a new building moves forward. The most recent brand new school we opened was Jenkins, and we got to be out there the first couple of days of school, and I can tell you the excitement of the principal and the students at that school was just over the top. They were so happy. Tell us a little bit about those types of things that you're able to provide in these projects for the teachers, for the principals, for the students, and what their reaction is when they walk into this brand new building, when oftentimes many of them have been in a 40 or 50-year-old building for years.
Absolutely. So we get to see the excitement of the teachers and the students on the first day of school at Jenkins High School, but a lot of what went into the school was data, information, lessons learned from previous ESPLOST projects over the last 15 years. All of those lessons learned, we've been able to take and put into our construction design guidelines so that it's not just at one school, but we can ensure that all of our schools have the same opportunity, all of our students have the same learning opportunities. So say, for instance, the auditoriums. Allen's High School was one of the first schools that we built an auditorium with, and now we have several across the city. We've already had the Yamacraw Auditorium at Garrison. We have the auditorium at Allen's. We just had a ribbon cutting on the auditorium at Beach High School. So different areas of the city are able to get different capabilities and the students are able to use those. We talked about audio enhancement, which allows us to integrate many of the separate systems that we had in our schools. It integrates the security cameras, the access control, security vestibules, intercoms within the schools. And so now we have a central brain with the redundancy that we need so that we can maintain connectivity through information technology, but also so that learning is not interrupted for our students. It also makes it intuitive for our teachers. You know, we've put so much on our teachers, especially over the last 18 and 19 months, but the technology that we're implementing in the schools is to make it more intuitive for our teachers, for our instructors, so that they can concentrate on the things that they need to, which is teaching our students.
In addition to the buildings themselves, I know another thing that everybody has been really excited about is the very first district football field, track field, athletic facility that opened was out at Islands. It opened, I guess, right about the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So we didn't get to celebrate it as much as we would have liked, but we've got another one just about to come online at Savannah High.
That's right.
And then the K-12 multi-school campus in Garden City is going to have one. Tell me about that. How does that differ from constructing a school? I mean, you know, you guys obviously come out with these designs and take into account what types of sports, I guess, each school has.
Right.
Tell me what goes into that and how exciting that is for the student athletes who get to go to games, practice at these new facilities.
Absolutely. Well, we talk about the power of the penny, and that does not just refer to classroom settings. We want our students to be well-rounded. And so even out of the academic setting inside the classrooms, we want to make sure that they have facilities for arts as well as athletics. And so our stadium at Islands, it has a state-of-the-art information technology within the press box. There's places where the press can take pictures and video record. The coaches certainly have been able to take advantage of the press box where they can record their team, record the games, and use those for practice. We have different activities such as the discus throw, as well as the shot put, which are activities we just did not have in any of our facilities in the past. And with each stadium we're able to get a little bit better each time.
Well, and the community gets to come in and see those facilities on a regular basis. When games are played, they get to go and they get to experience it. Tell me from an economic standpoint, because we were playing at city-owned stadiums previously, all city-owned stadiums, were we paying rental costs when we did, or do we have an agreement with the cities?
We have an agreement with some of the city and county groups, but we also did pay rental fees. And one of the benefits of our efforts to build our own facilities means that not only do our students get to play on our own turf, with turf, I want to make that point as well, but we also control the security aspects. We control the technology, and we also make it available for persons who wish to rent from us. So we also see it as a possible revenue generator. Because of the design, they are top of the line. Our students deserve nothing less, but they also are now of interest to teams that are hosting tournaments in the city, or teams that may want, organizations that may want to host tournaments or competitions. So our facilities are open in that way to also helping us generate revenue.
Another aspect of the economic impact on the community, we've talked about how our citizens aren't paying for all these construction projects because we're also getting all those penny sales taxes in from visitors. But these construction projects provide a lot of jobs, right?
A lot of jobs. And the board has made a commitment to keep as many of those dollars local as possible, making sure that, as Dr. Labette said earlier, we want to be able to keep families employed. Even during the pandemic, when you saw a lot of projects take a hiatus, you saw a lot of businesses close, all of our construction projects continue. We were able to open the White Bluff Elementary. That project remained active. And we are always very proud, to be able to talk about of the $297 million in contracts that are currently committed. 47% of those dollars are allocated, and those expenditures are with local vendors. That's 47% of $297 million. That the board was very clear about their commitment to this community, that is many of those dollars that we can work with our contractors. You'll see the construction team engaged in more direct contracts with the school district. It's about developing those vendors and having them move from subcontractors to prime contractors by looking at projects and making those available for competition at each vendor's level. Is being able to grow a lot of our vendors as a result of ESPLOST. So it's not just building new schools and the physical education piece, but there's also a very strong economic component of it. So you'll hear us talk about how we want to make sure that we're capitalizing and working with our small vendors, and that is certainly a commitment from this district, and one that the Operations Division and specifically our capital projects team has been able to deliver on. A lot of the local MWBEs, we're currently at about 12% of that $297 million, and non-local is about 55%. So we monitor, we hold vendors accountable, and we want to continue to build those partnerships and help to develop our vendors.
We talked a little bit about Jenkins, which was our latest project to open, and I know you touched on a couple that are coming up soon. Can you talk a little bit more about those? Our next projects to open up would be, I guess, the New Hampstead K-8.
Yes.
That's Savannah High football stadium, athletic facility. What else is coming online? And also you talked about the Beach High auditorium that we just held a ribbon cutting for a short time ago.
And we've already broken ground on the K-12 over in Garden City. So New Hampstead K-8 will be opening within the next few months. And we really took interest in the design. One of the things that school will bolster is outdoor spaces, outdoor learning spaces. One of the nice aspects of that school is we have a bridge going over the wetlands area between the two schools, and there's going to be an observation deck so that teachers can take their students out and they can learn in the environment. They can get some, enhance their vitamin D out there in the open air. We also took care about the way that we design the playgrounds. There's going to be an inner courtyard for this facility with additional outdoor learning spaces. So if teachers want to take their kids out and teach in the middle of the courtyard, it's a safe and secure area where they can also learn. The LED lighting in all of our schools have been updated for all of our new schools, and we're going back and renovating all of our older schools so that they'll have 100% LED lighting in those schools. So those are just a few things that we've taken, that we've implemented into our new schools. We talk about sustainability. We're also putting solar panels at all of our new schools, up to 50 kilowatts, to ensure sustainability across all of our facilities. So that's just a few, but we're really excited about the path forward.
Yep. And it's actually a solar farm on the campus of the New Hampstead
That's right.
K-8. So I've had an opportunity to go out there. I was out there a couple of days ago and was checking in on that. But certainly we are very strong as it relates to sustainability and going green. Making sure that we can incorporate all aspects. We're one of the few school districts in the state that we're proud to talk about our 2 green ribbon schools, making sure that we are incorporating as much as we possibly can. So be able to have that recognition from the national level, and that's a part of our ESPLOST program as well.
I was just going to ask you about the Green Ribbon Schools. Since you talk about the solar farm and the solar panels, obviously you're saving some money on power there, but I know that we've done a lot of other things at several of our schools to earn that green ribbon, and I think there's some works in progress at other schools. Tell us a little bit about how much that also saves the taxpayer, what it does for our schools, because I know some students have actually had learning opportunities as a part of that whole earning the green ribbon process, all the little projects that are involved in that.
You'll see greenhouses at our schools, you'll see more, bike racks. We're teaching as a part of that curriculum, sustainability, energy conservation, and Mr. Jones made reference to the LED lighting and how we were able to work with Georgia Power as our partner, and how we have been able to combine some of our campuses where we may have had 3 meters and now you'll see one. And just being able to bring that forward has certainly been a tremendous cost savings to the district. So it's a cost avoidance as well. So that gives us an opportunity to use those dollars in other areas. We're not having to continue to come to the district or the general fund for those dollars to be able to see a reduction in a cost avoidance in our utility bill, meaning that those dollars can then remain in the general fund for academics and for instruction. So we make sure that we're committed, we're good partners on the operation side. We call ourselves the division that holds up academics. We want to be able to do everything we can to make sure that as many dollars are allocated and remain available for instruction.
And we talk,
I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say, we talk about how we work together with academics. We do save a lot of money through those efforts, but one of the great things about it is that we're also teaching our young people about cost savings. We're teaching our young people about how to lower their carbon footprint as well, so that once they go out into the community, they'll be able to use those skill sets. You talked about one of our green ribbon schools, Gadsden Elementary is one of them. We have a 30 kilowatt solar farm there, but it's also tied into monitors within the school so that the teachers can use those monitors, the students can see real-time cost savings, real-time reduction of carbon footprint within their particular facility. So it's not only an integration of that technology into the facilities, but it's also about creating opportunities for the students to learn from it, and that's an additional thing that we're able to do with those ESPLOST dollars.
Well, they say it's true change in society comes from the young ones. I remember when my daughter came home from school as a young one and started getting on my case about shutting off the water while I was brushing my teeth. Something that we weren't taught to do when I was kids, but she was being taught that in school. Conservation and environmental efforts, they take that home and teach their parents.
Absolutely.
So we've got this ESPLOST 4 coming up on the referendum in November. This would not be a new tax. This would be a continuation of that 1 penny sales tax. Can you talk a little bit about that, Dr. Levette? What's the date on that? What exactly is the ballot question? And then I want to talk about a little bit about some of the projects. I know Ms. Miller-Kegler mentioned a new Windsor Forest High School, but talk a little bit more about some other projects that might be on ESPLOST 4 if that is approved by the voters in November.
Thank you. And I do want to point out just a few other things about so many of the projects we have. If you are spending any time in the west side of town, you also know that Woodville-Tompkins has had a number of upgrades, which of course makes that community very happy as well. Students attend Woodville-Tompkins from all over the city, but they are of course celebrating a new auditorium and a new gymnasium that they've wanted for quite some time. And then, of course, our career tech labs are some of the best in the state. We've been able to put those labs in place based on ESPLOST dollars and also combining them with dollars from the state for career tech. If you look at our labs in each of our schools, but particularly Savannah High School, Woodville-Tompkins, Beach High School, where we have our very first community health screening clinic, which serves not only the students who are learning about health sciences at Beach, but also our community. All of those additions and enhancements are there for students to have that hands-on learning experience, and we're doing that using ESPLOST dollars as well.
I remember when we visited Jenkins the first couple of days of school, one of the things that we spoke to an instructor and a student, and one of the things they were so excited about was to have a state-of-the-art lab workspaces for the engineering choice program that is at Jenkins. The student felt sure that the experience they could now get in that classroom because of the state-of-the-art facility would enable them to be ready to go out into the workforce and get a job in a variety of types of engineering careers.
Great. I mean, we think about what's going to be happening at Groves High School, where we have logistics and also aircraft maintenance and avionics. When you think about learning on a new flight simulator in your high school, that is awesome. When you think about also under ESPLOST, being able to upgrade in all of our buildings the air filters, which are really important to do at this time, but making sure our HVAC systems are working well. When you have 25 kids in a classroom, the last thing you need in July or August is for the HVAC system to go out. That is not comfortable for anyone. And when our children are learning, we want them to be able to be comfortable, and our staff is working under the best conditions. I think the one thing that is really important, when we put this referendum on the ballot in November 2nd, we want to remind people about how well we have done over these 3 referendums. We have done, I think, a great job of demonstrating not only good financial stewardship, but also a commitment to our local community, a commitment to high-quality buildings and high-quality services, and engaging as many of our community members who are local, minority, business, women business owners. They're all a big part of our support system, and we support them by making sure that they have access to these projects. When we put these projects on the ballot going forward, what we're doing is actually supplementing what we've done in the past. So we've learned from ESPLOST 1 and 2 and 3. We're using our local facilities assessment to determine what should be in the next iteration. We also have given in this ballot referendum, we've also paid attention to our communities to say, we don't want a whole new school. What we want are upgrades. So we're taking really good lessons about how do we ensure that a community that doesn't really want a brand new school, how do we ensure that it is upgraded, that it is refurbished, renovated, to ensure that we can include in it the newest technology, the newest safety protocols and measures. So what may be a small school like a Jacob G. Smith, nestled right there in that community, they don't really want a new school. But for us and for the students, it's really important that they have a building that is solid, that is renovated, that has the latest technology, that has the latest safety enhancements. So when you see this referendum, you will see, of course, replacements we're proposing for Windsor Forest Elementary and Windsor Forest High School. The Windsor Knights are ready for a new high school, and they will, of course, be very pleased to have a new state-of-the-art building. But we're also paying very close attention to our needs of the western part of the county. We'll certainly need some renovations and some new spaces on that side of town as well. Our focus will be on safety enhancements because that's really important for us to do. And then we're also taking into account the new ways of learning. You will see some thoughts about how we enhance our program at Bartlett Middle School, our STEM Academy, and you'll see some new thoughts about how we also make sure that we're keeping up with the growth pattern in the county without neglecting, of course, our small communities like Pooler and Bloomingdale, and then, of course, paying attention to those recurring costs that would otherwise have to be paid for through the general fund or through floating a bond. HVAC systems in Savannah, Georgia, Chatham County, you have to pay attention to them. Mm-hmm. There are also other enhancements that we need to make that are related to safety. Mrs. Miller-Kegler can talk more about what's going to be on the referendum, but clearly on November 2nd, our community will get the opportunity to say, let's continue to use that penny to ensure that our buildings are upgraded, schools are replaced as needed, and also the security and safety enhancements that need to be in place are in place. And we want to do all of that without having to float a bond or to create additional costs for our homeowners.
And that's what I was going to ask you as a real quick follow-up. If the continuation of ESPLOST did not pass, you say we would have to take out bond debt to pay for new schools or to pay for security enhancements and any kind of upgrades at schools. I assume that bond debt has to be paid back with interest?
I think it has to be paid back with interest, Ms. Blanco, and I'll reiterate what Mrs. Kegler said earlier. Through ESPLOST, we have been able to pay back our bond debt. Mm-hmm. So we are one of the few districts in the state that is without bond debt. We're debt-free, and we've been able to do that by very carefully mapping out how we've used our ESPLOST dollars over this time period. And we celebrate that. We actually want to keep it that way. We don't want to have to do that. So we would prefer that people allow the sales tax to continue because, number one, it's not borne by taxpayers. It's by people who are simply spending dollars in our community. And they can be people driving in. They can be people coming into our community to shop. And they can be, of course, the tourists. And it is much more evenly spread and not borne by taxpayers. And we think that's important, that we've been able to demonstrate good financial stewardship and elevate the buildings that we provide instruction in, but also our community is able to use our buildings as well. So we want to keep that going. We really think it's important for people to understand that it is a continuation and not something new, and that we definitely have all the information out there for people to look at how we've used it, and most importantly, to recognize that even during the pandemic, those projects kept going, and that those families continue to be engaged and to be able to sustain themselves during a very difficult time in our history.
And Dr. Levette said that you would be able to talk a little bit more. I know touched on Windsor Forest. I know you touched on before how those decisions are made. Windsor Forest is obviously, it's an older school. Windsor Forest High and Windsor Forest Elementary. Tell us a little bit more about how the decisions are made on which facilities to replace first, because obviously, like I mentioned before, old community. We have a lot of old buildings. How do you decide which one comes first for replacement?
And the needs are great. They're still great. While we have replaced probably over 50% of our buildings, there's still that 50% over there that needs attention. So again, we look at the index of the building, look at the life expectancy. We look at the costs associated with maintaining those older buildings or those senior buildings and prioritizing them, based on those needs. We both refer to the Windsor Forest High School. We're looking at, again, growth in Western Chatham County relative to Pula Elementary, to Bloomingdale Elementary School. While Godley Station is a relatively new school, we're literally chasing, enrollment and growth in that area. So you'll see some additions in that particular area. Dr. Levette made reference to Jacob G. Smith, which is one of our community schools that want to remain in that community. So you'll see us on the referendum appealing for total modernization. It's the desire of the staff and families to remain in that area. So it gives us the flexibility, based on state guidelines, to take that building and totally modernize it without having to. It's somewhat of a replacement, but it'll maintain its existing shell, but we'll go in and work. We'll look at our STEM Academy at Bartlett as well, but certainly we'll be focusing in on the Windsor Forest High School, Pula, Bloomingdale, coming up with some plans for that particular area as well. But you'll see us focus a lot on upgrades, looking at HVAC systems while we've had ESPLOST for 15 years. And just like at home, your AC system will only last but for so long. Mm-hmm. We'll be now looking and paying attention to where we need to either replace or upgrade some of our HVAC systems. Will have a focus on technology, safety, and security. Garden City is one of our senior schools. Schumann Elementary, Southwest Georgetown Henderson Formey. We'll be looking at those schools primarily as a part of our E4 referendum. But again, those data-driven decisions, we look at the overall condition, what those needs are, and being fortunate enough to address them with ESPLOST dollars. So we developed that plan. Had an opportunity as we planned for E4 to have board coordination, to have them take a look at our facilities condition assessment, look at our local facilities plan that's managed and governed by the state, and prioritize what those needs are. Our needs are great. We're looking at tax collections of about $410 million, but that doesn't touch the surface of what the needs are in Savannah, Chatham County. But we're most appreciative that we've had the opportunity to make the impact that we have over the last 15 years and want to continue that into ESPLOST for another 5 years.
I want to talk a little bit more about one of our biggest projects that I know Mr. Jones said we have broken ground on. And I want to talk about it from an economic standpoint, as well as from a student teacher standpoint. The K-12 multi-school campus. Now, originally, there was talk of replacing the very old Groves High School and building a new K-8 because, as we talk about, the west side is growing. Then you all looked at it and decided, well, perhaps a K-12 campus would be a better option, because we were also looking at needing to very quickly replace Mercer Middle School and Gould Elementary School, both in older buildings. So now the plan is to have this beautiful new K-12 campus with a complete athletic complex and have 3 schools on one campus. I don't know which of you is the best one. Maybe you all want to chime in on it, but can you tell me a little bit about how that decision came to be, why that is going to be great for the community, both from an economic standpoint and from the community of students and staff at those schools?
That's the best part of my job, is to be able to sit down with a team and be creative, to be innovative, and then have a leader that push you to come up with those concepts and ideals that are going to be conducive to learning. That's key. And as a part of E3 in our first year, revenues were down. But again, promises made, promises kept. We were planning for a Gould Elementary, a Mercer Middle School, and a Groves High School, again with that partnership with the City of Garden City, who wanted to see that high school remain in that particular area. So we were having the conversations, and I think I had mentioned a K-12 at a board meeting once that didn't go over quite well. But all I did was take it and put it on the shelf for a little while and just waited for the opportune time. So staff, we started collaborating. Certainly there was a need for a new elementary, the middle, and high school. So that was the time to take a look at how can we be creative, working with the team, how we can cite it, working with our design professional team. And we were able to come up with the ideal of being able to locate those 3 on one site. And while it wasn't ideal, while it was a concept for us as the operations team, when you look at it from an academic standpoint, we do a lot of K-8s. Why not have a student potentially start from kindergarten to 12? But if you look at what we've done in the past, I graduated from Beach High School. So if you look at, there was Harge Elementary, there was Beach Junior High School, and then you always waited until you got over to the high school. So we were all right there along together, where that transfer of knowledge took place on Hopkins Street. Very similar to if you look at what's happening on the islands with Island High School, or Coastal Middle School, and with Marsh Point right there together. So in working with the operations team, the capital projects, and then with academics to be able to take that and bring it to fruition. That's an exciting part of what we do.
Well, I know, and Mr. Jones mentioned that we're essentially going to have that concept as well with the New Hampstead K-8 and New Hampstead High School with the
Absolutely.
bridge between
with the
the
bridge
two.
between them.
So
Absolutely.
they're not all in the same building, but they're all right there next to each other, and those students get to grow and learn and move forward, kind of staying in the same space with their friends, with, you know, in their neighborhood.
Look at the School of Humanities at Juliet Low and Jenkins High School.
It really does promote and support the sense of family.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we find also now is it also allows us to maximize our efficiency as well. With the buildings very close together, we understand any kind of environmental impact that may happen. For example, New Hampstead K-8, New Hampstead High School, if there's a need or something happens in that immediate community, we can operate in a way that allows our personnel to work together, collaborate, but also we can tackle issues that may be environmentally focused by working in that one area, as opposed to 2 or 3 different places. We operate the same way right now with islands. If something happens in one of those schools, we can harness our resources and provide support for them. If there is a breakdown of some sort at Marsh Point, they have 2 additional places within walking distance. So it supports the sense of family, allows us to maximize our efficiency, and really allows children to experience common themes, common approaches, common values across a set of buildings. Where we'll see that probably in play most is going to be at the new project, the new Groves High complex. Those young people will be able to, of course, operate independently as 3 schools, but there will be a set of common values and procedures that will allow them to have a great experience, and we are excited about it. We're able to say that about some other communities around our city, but this will actually get to be a really great space for us to see that come to be. And I'm looking forward to a young person starting at New Hampstead K-8 and finishing out in New Hampstead High School. I'm looking forward to a young person being able to start out in pre-K right there at Gould Elementary, and then walking over to Mercer, and then walking a few feet more to complete their experience at Groves High School.
Talking about efficiencies, I can only assume, it seems to make sense that it would also be providing an economic savings to build one bigger school that can encompass all 3 than to have built 3 brand-new separate schools. Would that be the case?
Very good observation.
Absolutely, not only for the design and the building of the school, but also for maintenance. We have millions of square feet of roofing that we have to maintain every year, and having one roof is much easier to maintain than having several different ones. Also, the HVAC, to have one central system that our maintenance team can operate, can maintain, to be trained on and to maintain, makes our ability to maintain those facilities much more efficient. We have one kitchen at the K-12. As opposed to several different kitchens. So as you break down the different components of the school, having one facility for 3 different schools makes sense economically, and it shows how we're able to use the power of the penny and ensure that the community gets the most out of their resources.
And certainly it'll also give us an opportunity to make sure that we have really good backup systems as well.
Absolutely.
Because having one roof and a hole on one side means that we would also be able to ensure that if there is damage on one side of a building, which very often we experience even in our own home, that there is another place that we can move our children, so there is no interruption to their educational experience. Plus, they'll get the opportunity to do what we really want, and that is to really study how our community is impacted through this one huge project. We'll be able to employ more local people. We'll also be able to definitely have more local dollars stay in our community. And we'll be able to have a state-of-the-art 3 buildings under one roof model for others to see and to replicate.
I want to make sure we hit on a few questions because a lot of times we get a lot of questions from the community, especially when we're coming up on a referendum to renew or continue the 1 cent sales tax. And so I want to make sure that we address some of them. I think some of them we've already talked about. We've explained what an education or ESPLOST is. It's different, separate than what the county and city do. Theirs is just a SPLOST, a special local special purpose local option sales tax. Ours is an educational special purpose local option sales tax. Explain, though, exactly what ESPLOST funds can be used for, because we're asking the community to commit to this extension of the 1 penny sales tax. What we don't want them to think that those funds are going to be used for things that they can't be used for. What can this penny on the dollar be used for?
Certainly. Specifically for capital projects, for renovations, for buildings, for upgrades, for replacements, and now we have the opportunity to include technology, safety. For the first time in ESPLOST 3, we had an opportunity to include the replacement of buses, because it's tied to academics being able to transport our students, and we'll be doing the same in E4, looking at replacing those less efficient vehicles for transporting students. So there's a very specific set of guidelines that drive how those dollars are expended, what those criteria is, and how it can certainly be used. We can't use it for salaries, unfortunately. It's primarily designed for capital building programs, and then some of those additional requirements specifically related to security, safety, and to technology.
I do think it bears repeating. Certainly, this is based on the law as it's written, so we're bound by what the law will provide. Some people will say, you have ESPLOST dollars, so why can't you use that to pay salaries and buy instructional materials? It is not permissible under the law. So if I wanted to buy technology these days, I can do that, but I cannot buy the applications that I use with that technology. Mm-hmm. If I want to employ people, I can't pay teacher salaries out of ESPLOST dollars. So it's really important that people know those expenditures are dictated by the Georgia law.
And so the talking about technology, for example, it's not just an upgrade in the buildings that enable you to use technology, but the funds can also be used to provide that technology for those classrooms for the students.
Correct. And so we have done that, especially with the onset of the pandemic. We were able to do that. Very fortunate that our board saw the need for us to do that. We had a plan to do that over several years. Of course, the pandemic accelerated that, but we will be using additional dollars to provide, of course, the upgrades that are needed for those devices, but we will not be using them for other things that make the devices work. For example, the software, those kinds of things cannot be purchased using ESPLOST dollars.
And as far as security, I know a lot of dollars and a lot of always gets talked about at the board meetings because it's usually part of our ongoing ESPLOST projects is the addition of safety vestibules. You know, everybody knows that the new schools are built with this outer room that you enter. You get screened for security and now also for COVID. And before you have access to the rest of the building, before you are buzzed through, that's very important and something that older schools weren't built with because they were built before you saw the types of things in the news that we see today. And we've been able to go through and add those security vestibules to keep our students safe.
Our design guidelines definitely reflect our concerns about safety and how we ensure that our students, staff, and visitors are safe at all times in our buildings. So our new buildings have all of those as a part of their guidelines. Even when you think about how the driveways are constructed, all of those things are important and are part of the design guidelines. Even where the bike racks are, where they might be now, where they may be positioned later, or how we provide ingress and egress. All those things are really important and are part of the design. When the school that was built 60 years ago was built, those design guidelines were not in place, and perhaps those needs were not in place. But we have seen enough and learned enough by looking at things that happen across the country and across the world to know that safety has to be a priority. And so the kind of retrofitting that we're doing by ensuring that there's a safety vestibule ensures that someone who has ill intent is not able to have access to the entire school body. Making sure that we have electronic access to buildings, making sure that we have the telephones that we can not only see who's accessing, but also talking with them, and then the cameras that are all around the periphery. All of those enhancements are actually essential now, and they cost dollars that can be paid for through ESPLOST.
And we don't want our kids to feel like they're in prison, so we take great care into ensuring that the design is conducive to learning and not just pleasing to the adult eye, but also to the eye of a child. And so we're able to incorporate courtyards into the design. We're able to incorporate large windows into the design to ensure that we meet the requirements of the facility, but also make sure that the students have the best opportunity to learn in those facilities. We talked about the technology, and it's not just the technology you see, but it's also the technology that you don't see and the technology that has not yet arrived yet. So creating those multi-facility campuses, we're able to connect those campuses via fiber. So if we do need some redundancy, we're able to provide additional sleeves just in case technology changes and there's a new cable that hasn't been invented yet that we'll need to run between the campuses. We've been able to use ESPLOST dollars to prepare for the future as well. Fortunately, the intercom systems that we installed 40 years ago, some of them are still working in our schools today, but we're able to retrofit those facilities with intercoms that will allow like Dr. Levette said, an administrator at one school to alert another administrator down the street that, hey, we have an emergency and your school may need to go on lockdown as well. So we're preparing for the future while ensuring that our children can learn the best that they can today.
Well, we had touched on many of the community questions, but there is one that I did want to touch on, and maybe each of you want to weigh in on it. But if someone in the community says, well, I don't have any kids in the school system, why does this matter to me? Why should I vote to pay an extra penny on the dollar? I mean, doesn't do anything for me. What's your answer to that?
Well, let's start with just saying we're all taxpayers.
That's right.
And I don't have any children in the school system at this time, but I do have about 37,000 I'm affiliated with on a daily basis. Using ESPLOST means that our property taxes are stable. If we don't have ESPLOST dollars and we have needs, which of course we have definitely lots of evidence of and lots of information that we can provide, then those enhancements or those improvements must be paid for through a bond. Bonds, the costs for bonds are borne by taxpayers, homeowners. So right now, I would just say if whatever community I live in, if enhancements are needed, new buildings are needed, then I would much rather it be paid through a sales tax than through an additional assessment on my property as a property owner. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is that I think our community benefits from high quality instruction. When you come through our schools and you see the kind of opportunities that students have to prepare for the future, they can learn engineering in engineering labs, not just through a book. They can learn about aviation and aviation maintenance. They can learn about any career field, medicine. All of those experiences, those hands-on experiences are provided in our school buildings, in addition to out in our community. All those experiences allow our children to be prepared for the future. That means that they don't have to go someplace else to get a job. They can get a job here because they are well prepared. You can't do that just through a textbook. or just through a video. They have to have the opportunity to apply what they're learning. Those kinds of experiences come because we make them available through these buildings, through these labs that are afforded to us through ESPLOST dollars. So if you're not, if you don't have children in school, it is important for our community to prepare our children for the future so that we are not in a position of having them go away or having not enough children who are well prepared to keep our community going.
First quality, first class buildings equate to first class quality instruction equals first class, first quality, top-notch citizens. And it all works together. We produce well-educated students who will become a part of the community. They are now. We train our students to be early scholars, through our internships and to our partnerships. So what you're doing, you may not have any children in the public school system, but they're not just our future, they're our now. And you are helping us prepare quality citizens for now and for the future.
Absolutely. So I would say to the person who may not have any children in the school system, who may not own any property in the county, I would encourage them to talk to some of our students that are educated in the school system and to get to know them and to just develop a relationship with them and ask them about what they're learning here. This past summer, I had an opportunity to work with several interns that either current students in our system or graduates of our system, and it's just amazing at how much I learned from them. Students who were able to learn how to operate a drone with just in a couple of hours, which will allow us to become even more efficient in our roofing plan and our roofing strategic plan. Students who are able to go in and do marketing and accounting and assist local businesses in that area. Students who, because of the way that they were educated, they were able to step into an area that they may not have been familiar with and excel. That's great for our community. That's awesome for our community. We don't have a lot of the problems here that other areas have, whether it's an employer who employs thousands of people or whether it's entrepreneurs. The students who are educated in this system, they can go out and they can do both or either or.
Mm-hmm. And I would encourage anybody to go out and see some of these new schools, because it's not just what's inside and what we're providing the students, but these buildings are designed in such a beautiful manner that fit the neighborhood, and they have become showpieces for many of the neighborhoods that they are in. They are absolutely gorgeous. And so if anybody in the community hasn't been by one of these new schools, they should really just drive by and take a look and see how beautiful they are and what a showpiece they are in each community. I think that's all the questions I had. If there is anything else that you all wanted to touch on that we haven't talked about?
I want to thank our community for investing in our children and investing in the future. I have had the opportunity to live and work in other communities where an education, special purpose, option sales tax is just not available. Everything is voted on through a bond, and many communities that vote is not there. So the experiences that the children in that community have is less than representative. And I am very fortunate to be a product of the community, a product of the school system, and I can tell you, through my experience, not only here but in other places, the people in Savannah, Chatham County, care about their children. And we demonstrate that love and that care by allowing the sales tax to be used to ensure that our children are experiencing an education in a sound, safe, and state-of-the-art facility. That is important. It shows the children what we value. It also helps the children understand the community cares about them, but also allows them to understand the value of supporting such efforts for their children. So I'd like to thank the community first for doing that, but also encourage the community to look at all the materials that we have available so that they can become educated on why this has been important to our local economy, to our children's future, and to our future as a community.
And a lot of the data and the information we've talked about, these new schools, these new projects that we've built, the upgrades and other facilities that we've done are all available on the district website at sccpss.com. Anybody have anything else? All right. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope everybody learned a little something about ESPLOST, and we'll look for that referendum on the ballot on November 2nd.